Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. We've got class changes rolling off the presses for PvP and PvE, and these ones, some of them are pretty controversial that I've gathered so far from the responses on social media. And of course, if you want to stay up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, then smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. Now, this first round of changes is oriented and directed mostly at PvE, but will have some implications on PvP. For Vengeance Demon Hunter, they are nerfing your crowd control. Your silence duration is going down by 1 second. The cooldown of the silence is also increasing by 30 seconds, and your cycle of bindings will now reduce the cooldown of your sigils by 2 seconds per trigger, down from 3, and Soul Cleave will be doing 8% less damage. That does actually funnily have some implications on PvP balance as well, because these are really powerful crowd control effects for Vengeance Demon Hunter. This may effectively completely destroy it from being even remotely playable, although I'm sure not a lot of people are maybe unhappy about that. For Boomkin, we are seeing buffs to their set bonus. I've seen a lot of PvE Boomkin saying that the set bonus is incredibly weak, but in PvP it's very powerful. So this buff will likely leak over and make Boomkin even stronger in PvP. Now you're going to be, the damage of your Wrath and Starfire is going to be increased by 50 up from 30. This is nerfed in PvP by 50%, so it's down to 25. But it's still an increase. And the 4-set bonus is now going to reduce the Astral Power cost of your next Star Surge by 30, up from 15, and increase the damage that it does by 60, up from 40. So this will likely be felt in the Eclipse windows in terms of burst damage for Boomkins, especially considering most people are probably going to be getting their set bonuses on Tuesday. So it's surprising to not see PvP counteractions to these buffs. For Brewmaster Monk, you're also getting some nerfs, it looks like. Keg Smash is getting a 10% damage nerf. Spinning Crane Kick's getting a 10% damage nerf. Some of the White Tiger statue damage reduced by 30%. And the effectiveness of your Stagger against magical attacks has been increased, though, by 10% to 55%. And your Healing Sphere is going to heal more. So a little bit of a damage nerf, a little bit of a durability buff for Brewmaster. For Assassination Rogue, ability and auto attack damage increased by 6%, but not in PvP. And this is what I mean by some of these changes coming through, and then also has not in PvP. Fixed an issue that caused the Assassination Rogue Season 3 and Season 4 bonuses to do slightly less damage than intended. Whenever I read something like this, it always causes a little bit of concern for me as to whether or not, does everything actually work properly in the game? Is it when I press this button, is it actually doing what it's going to do or says it does? Because, the Cataclysm pre-patch event has been kind of littered with a lot of bugs, and this type of stuff does make me pretty worried. I'm almost imagining that there's probably almost an indefinite number of bugs happening at any time that we're not even aware of. For Affliction Warlock, Doom Blossom damage is getting increased by 10%. I don't even know what that is for PvP. That doesn't seem like it's going to matter. Vile Taint is definitely not going to matter. It's getting increased by 25%. Soul Flame, another one, is getting increased by 20%. I'm not sure if this can have any implications. And 5% of Soul Rot will likely be at least a tiny bit noticeable in PvP. For Destro, you are getting a 3% Chaos Bolt buff. The 3% guy is back. Conflagrate is getting a 5% damage increase, and Incinerate is getting a 5% damage increase. I do not think this is enough to compensate for the loss of your rifts, especially in ranked 3s. But in Solo Shuffle, Destro, at least at the moment, maybe when everybody gets their set bonuses on Tuesday, it'll feel noticeably weaker. But in Shuffle, I've seen Destro Lock still doing all right. But in rank 3s, they've basically disappeared since the loss of that set bonus. Fury Warriors are going to feel really good in this patch, not even just from this, but from the PvP specific changes later on. But you're going to get flat out 3% damage bonus. Your set bonus is increasing the damage of Rampage and Critical Strike chance by 15%, up from 12. And your 4-set is Bloodthirst damage is increased to 35% per stack, up from 30. So that's not all they're getting. For Prot Warriors, they're going to be increasing the damage of all of your abilities. They're increasing the damage of Devastator by 30%, and Ignore Pain will heal 6% more. Disrupting Shout's cooldown is being reduced to 75 from 90, and Enduring Alacrity increases stamina and armor by 10%, up from 5, and the Haste by 2, up from 1, and Battering Ram now increases your auto attack damage and attack speed by 10% for 20, and it was previously 20%. So interesting little kind of buffs here for Prot Warrior. And now we're getting into the meat and potatoes. We're getting more towards some of the controversy. Or I would say the controversy is maybe more so around lack of action on certain specializations, but some of these changes could be really problematic. Now, Frost Death Knights, this is the first time you're getting some direct love. Your Frost Strike is getting a 20% damage increase. Your Frost Fever is getting a 25% damage increase. I am a bit worried that this dot damage is not going to really matter, but more so that this Frost Strike will likely be very noticeable. I think it's good that they didn't buff Obliterate, because Obliterate is already like your hardest hitting attack and hits really hard. But I think you're going to feel a 20% increase on one of your spenders. I feel like there's no way you don't, but you might not notice the dot. For Unholy Death Knight, you're also getting some love. Death coil damage is getting increased by 15% to 75 from 60. Festering wound damage is getting a 10% increase to 190 from 180. And your Frost Fever damage as well is getting buffed by 25% in PvP. So likely these will feel good on specs at the moment that need a little bit of a boost. So I think these are good. For Boomkin, you're getting a nerf to your Moonkin aura. Star Surge is now only going to grant 2% increased critical strike chance, down from 4. So this is going to be about a 50% loss instead of, I think, what is this, 4, 8, 12? Instead of 12% crit, it's going to be 6% crit. And obviously the effectiveness of this nerf scales depending on how many other people are in your group. So this is a very big nerf to battleground scenarios. It will be felt, I think, in arena as well, especially when you're paired with a caster or something, or even a demon hunter, and your healer will also be losing it. So I do think this is likely going to have some impact, but it will be offset again because of the set bonus buffs towards the top. For Preservation Evoker, Time of Need healing is getting nerfed by 25% PvP. This is like a random proc cheat death type of heal, like auto frenzied regen. You may notice it. I don't really think it's going to be that big of a deal. I think your set bonus is really what's enabling you. Most of the specs that are like outliers in PvP at the moment in terms of strength is because of set bonuses. Being able to get instant living flames is what's really making you very powerful. For Marksmanship Hunter, it was very surprising to see this. Rapid Fire is getting a 15% damage increase. Aimed Shot is also getting a 15% damage increase. And I think this is where the most controversial of the changes come through. Sniper Shot is getting, adjusted down to 15% of the target's health from 20. But again, because HP has scaled so high and the extra range that this ability adds, it's still probably going to be desirable. It's more so this Aim Shot and Rapid Fire. These are big numbers on abilities for a class that was doing monstrous amounts of damage. We saw it in the tournament with Kasu, doing more damage than Demon Hunters in a lot of cases. Seemed more so like his Feral Druid friend, not really able to keep up on the meter. So Marksmanship Hunter is going to be very, very, very scary on Tuesday. Very, 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 very scary on Tuesday. For Mistweaver, Clouded Focus increases healing and reduces mana cost by 20% per stack of PvP combat, up from 15. I don't know what this is for Mistweaver specifically enough to see how much of a big impact this is, or whether or not it's like mana is even really a problem for Mistweaver. I feel like for Mistweaver, it just needs to have more layers added to its class. At the moment, I think it's just missing that just one extra layer as a healing spec in order to feel as fun as the other healing options. But if you're a Mistweaver, let me know in the comments down below if this seems like a big deal. To me, it doesn't seem like a super big deal, though. Word of Glory is getting buffed for Holy Paladins by 15%. I think it's good. Targeting a spell that's not really getting like a huge amount of output. It's going to give them more instant healing, help them when they're getting trained. Seems like a decent change. For Discipline Priest, you're getting 11% more atonement healing. I don't know how many patches we've gotten at this point that's like 10% more atonement healing, and it's still just not that great. So maybe take this one with a grain of salt, but Radiance is getting a 10% healing increase, and this is around 20 to 30% of my healing, I think, usually, playing my Disc Priest, so this will likely be felt. Shadow Repaint and Purge the Wicked damage is also getting a 15% damage buff, which I started playing the Catharsis talent. This might make that a little bit more appealing when you're fighting like Affliction Warlocks and stuff like that, which we could see a lot of given the changes that are coming for them. So these Disc Priest buffs, I think you're probably going to feel them. I'm still just a bit worried that mana is going to be the main issue for you. For Holy Priests, they are lowering the duration of your angel form immunity to everything by 1 second, and your mana regeneration is being nerfed by 5%. I think that's fair. Honestly, I'm surprised Holy Priest only got this little bit of a change done to it, given how powerful it is. Maybe they're hesitant, again, to nerf healers. I think over-nerfing a healer would be really bad. Having any healer in a position where it just feels really weak and not viable is bad, because there's way less healing specs, way less healers overall. You never want to have even a single healing spec not feel like it's competitively viable, because you're going to increase the queue times for any content in the game, really. It's very important that the healer balance is good. For Assassination, we are seeing a rearrangement of your damage. They are taking away the King's Bane instant burst damage. They're reducing it by 12%, but converting it into the dot damage, which I think is effectively a nerf. The main power of King's Bane is that just like one-shot somebody for 400k. So taking that off the top end and giving you more sustained damage, I think is going to be felt more so like a nerf. But on top of that, you're getting an improved Garrote damage bonus increase. So if you're able to re-stealth, dance, or vanish more frequently, that Garrote damage is going to be doing 20% more. Improved damage bonus now reduced to 20% in PvP combat was 30. Is this a nerf? Okay, I read this a while ago, and then somebody tried to correct me saying it's a buff, and now I'm reading this again, and I'm thinking it's a nerf. Improved Garrote damage bonus now reduced to 20% in PvP. It was previously 30. So it was previously reduced by 30, and now it's reduced 10% less. So it's a buff. It's a buff to Garrote. I don't know. That sometimes these notes, I got to read them like 3 times. Between the Eyes damage is no longer increased by 12% PvP combat. It is very strange to me that they are nerfing Outlaw Rogue damage. I don't think there was anything at the moment that is telling me that Outlaw Rogue damage is like egregiously high. I could see some debate for survivability, but not damage. It seems really weird that they're nerfing their damage. Ace Up Your Sleeve now has a 4% chance to trigger per combo point spent and grants 4 combo points in PvP combat. It was a base 5% and 5 combo points. So it seems like a slight nerf to Ace Up Your Sleeve, which I'm going to imagine, again, is going to affect your burst damage during Shadow Dance if it's not giving you 5 combo points when you're proccing a lot of Between the Eyes. So it's really weird. I think it's really weird. I don't really feel like Outlaw Rogue needed a damage nerf. You know, maybe like survivability, but not damage. That felt really weird. Enhancement Shaman is getting a healing surge buff. It's going to be increased by 40%, up from 25. That's a lot of healing. I'm actually wondering how strong enhancement will end up feeling. Now you do have to, you know, compensate and not use Elemental Blast in order to heal, which is a big trade-off. But depending on how much healing it actually is capable of doing, could be pretty significant. For Resto Shaman, they're buffing Riptide by 10%. This again I don't feel like this seemed necessary. I feel like Resto Shaman was already pretty good position, but you're gonna definitely notice that Riptide's like your #1 heal. For Warlocks, this is like the biggest part of the rework in terms of damage I've seen for them. They're buffing Oblivion, which is already a little bit of a hassle because you're so honor talent like starved. You got to take like very specific ones that like slotting Oblivion in can just originally be very difficult, and it seems like they're trying to force you into doing that now. Drain Soul damage is going to be increased by 15%, so up to 30. Shadow Bolt damage is getting buffed by 90%, up from 60. I'm wondering if this means Nightfall is at all possible, like a Nightfall build where you're proccing Shadow Bolts. I don't really like pressing Shadow Bolt, but if the Nightfall build is giving you some juicer Shadow Bolts, this could likely be pretty competitive, but that's all at a trade-off for losing Agony damage. So you're going to be more single targety and proc bursty, which to me is making you more like a Frost Mage. You're like Ray of Frost, channeled damage, proccing flurry hits and stuff like that, and not like an Affliction Lock. I don't really like how this is like an identity shift for this spec. I would have much preferred to see like Drain Soul having some more execute component or more power in its execute range, because that's the main problem with Affliction, is that you feel like you have no finishing power. So making Drain Soul more meaningful as a target gets low health, like it used to be, where it's like, yeah, Drain Soul at low health, like that thing doesn't get stopped quick, you're a dunzo, I think would have made Affliction more fun for people, because at the moment you can get a bunch of damage out, they hover at 50% and never get any lower, and you can't really finish anybody. Giving them more finishing power. Fighting for their already struggling number of honor talents, completely reworking them basically into like a burst-based proc class when you already have a bunch of those, and abandoning the identity of being an AoE class, I don't think is an overall good move, but it could be scary and powerful. So take those two things together. Demonology is getting a Shadow Bolt buff as well to 90%, up from 60. I don't think you're really going to feel that. As for Demonology, not nearly as much as potentially for a Nightfall Shadow Bolt build for Affliction. For Arms Warrior, your set bonuses are no longer reduced by 50% PvP combat. Arms Warrior was unfortunately one of the ones that got hit hardest in PvP, with them voting on a set bonus that's just not very good for them. So hopefully this is going to help you out in terms of viability. And finally, Fury Warrior, the most insane changes. Rampage damage is now increased by 50%, up from 40. Raging Blow damage is now increased by 30, up from 15. And Execute damage is now increased by 80, up from 65, on top of all the set bonus changes. So I'm very worried about a Fury Warrior Marksmanship Hunter. I think that those are likely going to be really scary contenders, and it's possible Affliction Warlock with like some sort of proccing Shadow Bolt build is going to be really good. The things that are missing is, I can't believe Rising Sun Kick didn't get touched on Windwalker, something on Windwalker damage output, and I can't believe Demon Hunter. I cannot believe Havoc Demon Hunter did not. Those two, it's very surprising to me that those two didn't get looked at all. So I'm curious to see if this updates at all moving forward. I was wondering if we were even going to get balance changes, because it's season 4 and it's kind of like more like a filler season between this to the next expansion. So it is nice that we're getting changes. I'm hoping this does freshen up the meta and make some specs like Affliction and Fury more viable or more seen a little bit here, to just change things up for the final season. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this update, and I will see you in the next one.